So first of all, I would like to welcome my dear, dear, dear friend, Glenn Aparicio Parry, who, I mean, we go back a long way, back to like 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. Glenn, at that time, had his own education. Well, actually, have you started it yet? Anyhow, he was hosting a conference that brought together Native Americans and physicists and a few other, like anthropologists or linguist types in there as well. And it was like an amazing conference. I went back many times. There were other times that I did not get back, but I wish I could.
To New Mexico.
Yeah, they were in various places in New Mexico around the Albuquerque area. And I have to say they were dialogues, but dialogues of a very particular type. There was a circle. It wasn't just a two-person log. It was multiple people. It was like a talking circle. The kind of, like what we do here when we do the talk circles. That was inspired by Glenn, this man. So I am greatly indebted to those conferences for my own thinking and exposure to indigenous thinking. And so it is a great honor for us to have him here. I'll give you a little more of a standard bio now, but I wanted to do the personal introduction first. So Glenn Aparicio Parry, PhD, is a Nautilus award-winning author of this book, Original Thinking, a radical revisioning of time, humanity, and nature, and also this book, Original Politics, Making America Sacred Again. So these are the first 2/3 of a trilogy. And now he has written a third book called Original Love, the Timeless Source of Wholeness. So that's what he's going to talk about today. Glenn is the founder and past president of the SEED Institute, SEED. He is currently an adjunct faculty member at the California Institute of Integral Studies and president of the Jean Gebser Society, as well as president of the think tank called Circle for Original Thinking, and you can find that online. And the host of a podcast by the same name. He organized and participated in the groundbreaking Language of Spirit conferences. That's what I was just telling you about. That went from 1999 to 2011. That brought together Native and Western scientists in dialogue, and it was moderated by Leroy Little Bear. Parry now regularly moderates dialogues for various organizations and has appeared in several documentaries, including one called Seeding Change, a retrospective of the Language of Spirit dialogues, and Journeying to Turtle Island. He is an avid outdoorsman who enjoys hiking and fly fishing. And he lives in a very beautiful part of New Mexico. He writes from a fairly remote location where he lives amid wild horses, coyote, deer, and mountain lion with his wife, Tomoko, his dog, Momo, who you've seen in the background, and cat, Cappuccino, who will probably make an appearance. All right.
I guess
so. Thank you, Glenn, for being here. I'm going to make you big on the screen here. There we go.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lisa. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for all the good work that you've done in the world, and thank you for your evolving language book. It's amazing and very much, yes, it was. I'm grateful that it began with, in some respects, with your experiences at the Language of Spirit conferences. Those were life-changing for many people, including myself, very much so. Yeah, yeah. So I always like to begin any important gathering with a prayer. So if you'll indulge me, I would like to do that. So even though it's dark out, this is east, south, west, north, as above. Hmm. Hmm. Ah, beloved Creator, thank you for the blessing of being gathered here today with the tremendous group of the Monterey Friends of Jung. This morning, I was with Anne Baring, a Jungian analyst, and James O'D in a dialogue for a podcast. It's just an amazing day. I really appreciate this. What a blessing it is to be here. I appreciate Jungians because you are obviously interested in depth and you are respectful of all the world's traditions. You know that your consciousness could tap into almost anything at any moment in time. And you are blessed, just like all of us are, to be breathing in the same air that our ancestors breathed in since time immemorial, to stand softly upon Mother Earth, the same earth that supported the ancestors since time immemorial, to feel the rays from the sun giving just the right light, warmth, and energy since time immemorial, and to drink the same waters that have been circulating around the planet since time immemorial. And these waters are in communication with us and with our own heart, which is part of what we're going to be speaking of, original love. Thank you for this blessing. Aho, mitaki asen. Okay, thank you so much. So, I want to give an overview of the book that Lisa mentioned, Original Love. And there's a number of different ways that you could understand this book as a whole. It's really a co-evolution of love, humanity, nature, and consciousness. That's what it really is. It also traces a Gebserian arc from the archaic structure of consciousness to the magical structure, to the mythical, to the mental, and to the integral. And it also traces Mongolian eras, which I have a buddy who's gone to the Mongolian shamans 48 times. His name is Sky Otter or Bill Pfeiffer. I've yet to go once, but they did come to New Mexico for one conference. He brought them. Amazing people. The Mongolians said that in the last 21,000 years, we've had 4 eras as well. And really, they are the era of Earth, when the planet was originally associated with the womb of the mother. The era of sky, which is spiritually enlightened societies. And then the era of man, and that's the proliferation of patriarchal cultures, seeking scientific innovation and mastery over nature. This is what the Mongolian shamans say. But they say that we are emerging into the coming era of woman, which will re-emphasize the feminine forces of love and the radical interconnection between the human, the earth, and the cosmos. So, and then there's still another way to look at this book, which is actually the way I plan everything. And I originally learned from some Navajo friends of mine about what they called a Navajo process model, but I've adapted that now. So I just look at it. It's really what I'm trying to do is write anything in terms of the way nature unfolds. So I consider it to begin with seed and then move to root and then bud and then fruit. So the seed obviously contains the whole. It's just like the acorn contains the oak. That's also true with humans. So the seed, whatever it is, contains the whole. It's going to unfold, and as it unfolds in root, think of rhizomatic consciousness. I'm fleshing out the concepts a little bit that we're going to deal with, and then part 3 of the book is really, in this case, I'm calling it bud, but it's really what's happening now. So what's emerging now. So part 3 of the book is called Love in Modern Times. Part 1, let's go back to part 1. Part 1 is called Love and Wholeness. And it's also, there's a parentheses, in a time before time, because it really is a time before time. So part 2 is separation from the whole. And then part 3 is Love in Modern Times. And I say it's Love in Modern Times, but I actually begin with the story of Psyche and Eros, which is like back from who knows when, like 2500 BC or whatever. But those stories are still affecting. They're very much a guiding story for me. And part 4 is about an undivided presence of the whole. That's what part 4 is about. The first 2 parts of the book are really predominantly feminine, because the archaic, being in the womb of the mother, like the Mongolians said, is very feminine. And then even when you get to the archaic into the magical era, which is tantamount to a newborn baby standing near their mother, still fed from the source, still fed from some other dimension. When you look at a young baby, they're coming, who knows where they're coming from, but they are not just simply coming from here, in my view. They are bringing some very powerful energy from the beyond. So that's why I think of magical consciousness. The mythical era can really be broken up into 2 parts, because in the beginning of the great myths, all the myths were feminine. They were of the great goddess. And then eventually that yields into, in the middle of the Bronze Age, yields into the, sure, Cappuccino, you can come up, yields into the age of gods and heroes. And a lot shifts then, and we'll probably get into that in a minute. But it's very important that the book begins in the feminine, and it's very important that the book returns to the feminine, because that, to me, and you guys are Jungian, so I don't have to tell you, but to me, the feminine, is particularly the divine feminine face of God, has been pushed a little bit deeper into our consciousness, so that it now is residing in the deeper recesses of our unconscious. But it is reemerging. It's reemerging, and that's a really beautiful, beautiful thing. And that's really one of the important parts of the book. So now I also want to share with you the origin story of Original Love, because I kind of explained what it is, but this book is kind of magical. I did not decide to do this book. What happened was 7.5 years ago, my beloved wife Tomoko came down one morning at breakfast and she just said, "You're going to write a book called Original Love." And Tomoko had never pronounced my future before then, or really since, not like that at all, you know. And so I knew it was important, but I also feel that Spirit was speaking through her so that I would listen. Because I love her and she's telling me something like this. She never does that, so okay, I'm gonna take notice. So I opened up my computer and I started a folder called Original Love. But then I went back to writing the book I was writing, which was called Original Politics, the second book that Lisa outlined. But then 1.5 years later, I think, I was in Taos, New Mexico, and I was meeting with a woman named Jean Ellis Sankari. And Jean was teaching at UNM Taos, and she was asking me if I would like to teach at UNM Taos. And she was speaking about this. But then she interrupts herself in the middle of a sentence, and she says, "You're going to write a book called Original Love. I just got a download," she said. That's Taoseño speak. "I just got a download. You're going to write a book called Original Love, and it will be the third in a 3-part series with the word original in the title." So here's the interesting thing about that story. I had changed the title of Original Politics to Sacred Politics, and that was the working title that Select Books give me a book deal on. So I knew then that I had to change it back, and Select Books was very accommodating. I said, look, this is what happened. We got to change it back. And so we did. And then I got my own download for how to write the book. And it would be, I woke up one morning and I don't know if it was the dream or just, it was very clear to me that this would be a book primarily about remembrance for Mother Earth. Love for Mother Earth, love for everything, love for the flowers, love for the trees, love for the bees, love for everything on this planet and the cosmos. I knew that's what it was about. I knew that love is everywhere in nature, that love is a foundational force. You could say it's a foundational vibration even, So now I should explain that when I use the word original in any of the books that I'm using or that I've written, I am speaking about origin in a particular kind of way. And that goes back to really what was the origin story for writing the book Original Thinking, because Lisa spoke about these dialogues, and the very first one in 1999, also moderated by Leroy Little Bear, he moderated all 13 of them. Leroy just asked the question, is it possible to come up with an original thought? Is it possible to come up with an original thought? And frankly, that very question is still working its way through me all these years later. Because this very interesting thing happened when he asked that question, which is that almost all the Western people in the room tried to think of something brand new that had never been said before or never been done before. Even my dearest beloved Moonhawk, you weren't there that year, Lisa, I don't think, but Moonhawk tried to think, well, what if the Queen saw the castle burning on television? And she said something, that would be a sentence that's never been uttered before. Well, okay, maybe. But there were a couple of Western people, in fairness, who did not take the question that way. Lee Nichol, David Boehm's editor, was one of them, and also M.J. Zimmerman, that I remember, also took the question a little bit differently. But all the indigenous people received that question as an invitation to connect to origin as a place. And that's when I realized, or sometime shortly after that, I realized that Western culture has essentially replaced place with time. Now think about it. If you ask a Western mathematical cosmologist, even my absolute favorite one in the world, which would be Brian Swim, ask him to speak about the origin of the cosmos, and Brian would speak about, and also Thomas Berry, who he wrote a book together with called The Universe Story, would speak about the formation of the cosmos 13.8 billion years ago. They would talk about when it happened. Where? They really don't deal with that at all. They don't deal with it at all. It just happens someplace in a quantum singularity, this tiny space, and then the universe has been expanding ever since. That's at least one traditional theory of the Big Bang. What Paula Gunn Allen said in the 2004 dialogue, and Brian Swim was there. Paula Gunn Allen said, where I come from, God is a woman, and so I can't really get behind this Big Bang theory. It sounds to me like a male ejaculatory fantasy. So that's what Paula Gunn Allen said. Dear Paula Gunn Allen. So it's really important concept. If you replace place with time, that means we're no longer attuned to the iterative complexity, the rhythms in a particular place, which is what indigenous people have been tuning into for millennia. But it's also something else. It's something that Jean Gebser understood really well, which is that origin is a source. Origin is a source. Now, pardon me with my poor attempt at German, but the original title of Gebser's, what was translated in 1985 into English as the ever-present origin, was something like Ursprung und Gegenwart. And if somebody would like to correct my pronunciation, I'd be grateful. But Ursprung is an eternal spring in German. What a beautiful, beautiful expression. An eternal spring, a wellspring that's always there. That's really what I mean by source, so you can go to it. And I really feel that love has always been there. Love will always be there. Love is a foundational force. This is what Empedocles spoke about, the Greek Empedocles, and I think it's a story from way, way, way back in ancient times, but he's a pre-Socratic, but he's talking about that at the origin of the cosmos, there were 4 roots. And those 4 roots were mediated by the forces of love and strife. That's what Empedocles said. And he named those roots after gods and goddesses: Zeus, Hera, Adonis, Nestis, 2 female, 2 male gods, 2 female goddesses. But here's the interesting thing. Empedocles said that in the original formation of the cosmos, there were just the 4 roots and love. Love is what connected all the elements together. Love is what brought them together. And I said elements. Empedocles didn't actually use the word elements, but he did use the word roots, and later on people considered that to be the 4-element theory. So light, air, water, earth. And for the ancient Greeks, it would be rarefied air, up in the upper atmosphere. But in any case, I think that's a very interesting idea. It's a very interesting idea. So again, the arc of the book is really coming from wholeness, coming from the womb of the Mother Earth, being in completion. That is an archaic state, which is also an integral state. It contains everything, just like a seed contains everything. That archaic state is very, very full. And I want to read you from the beginning, so you'll get a feeling for how that's expressed. And I call this chapter Cosmogenesis. That's what it is. Imagine floating in a warm pool without a care in the world, being fed without moving a muscle. An endless supply of liquid nutrients just comes to you. Where it comes from, you do not know. There is no struggle, no need to hunt or forage. Nourishment is everywhere. Your eyes are not yet open, but you feel deep, abiding peace, more than peace, love, original love. There is love within you, surrounding you, enfolding you. Warm love, sweet love, pure love. All is love. All is interconnected. All is whole. There is no other. There is no mother, at least not one you recognize, because there is no separation. There is only oneness, an undivided, complete oneness. This is not only a human uterine experience I'm describing. This is how it was for all the earliest organisms on Earth. Mother Earth was once a fluid welling mass, a primordial blend of living microscopic creatures. These tiny organisms had consciousness, but it was a consciousness tied to a greater whole. They were cells within a planetary body. Their individual simplicity belied a greater complexity. A grand unit of vision had brought them forth, a larger vision not only for Earth, but of the cosmos, for Earth is not only a mother. She is nested in a family of relationships with other planets, the sun, solar system, galaxy, and beyond. At the center of the Milky Way is a black hole. This is the womb of our galaxy, the hole in the sky spoken of in many indigenous stories as the place we came from. A galaxy is a coherent whole, but it is not the whole of creation. Our galaxy is nested in a family of other galaxies. Spirals among spirals among spirals, stretching far beyond where human instruments can track, perhaps even beyond the limits of the imagination. Where it ends, if it ends, is unknowable. It is a great mystery yet to unfold. In light of all this immensity, the human seems so insignificant. Are we a passing fancy of creation, a late arrival soon to be forgotten? Yes and no. The human form is new, but the human spirit, the spark of what we were to become, was there at the beginning. This is not only true of the human. The seed of all living things, not yet in physical form, was there. This is the way it has always been and still is. Essence precedes form. Humanity is a spark from Creator on a return trip back to Source. Before we took physical form, the human was a spirit being, a holy one. This is why we yearn to return to spirit, why we feel a longing in our breasts to come home. Every one of us, deep in our cellular memory, feels this pull. Somewhere inside of us, we know we are more than our physical bodies. We may not know who we are or exactly what we yearn for, but we still yearn. We sense there is something more. Our desire to go beyond the physical is real. It is not fanciful. It is not false. It is our soul's unerring calling, drawing us back home. Most of us have to die to realize this, but we can come home while we are still alive. The human embryo retains the memory of all that went before. This is why we are born in a watery womb and progress through stages of evolution from a tiny speck to tadpole, fish, and lastly mammal. The uterine experience recreates the arc of evolution with each and every child that is born. It teaches us that we have been here all along, connected with and co-emerging with all creatures across time. This is why all other beings are our relations. This is the most important lesson we can learn. The human spirit was a spiritual seed before it was a physical seed. The spiritual creates the physical, not the other way around. A spiritual seed preceded the acorn, which is why the acorn holds the blueprint for the oak. The same is true of us. Our spirit knew what we would become before we took shape. When we came into form, we did so in accord with the development of the planet. We did not become human out of the blue. It was out of the ocean where all life on Earth came from, but it was Mother Earth's timing that directed our emergence. Our spirit is tied to the cosmogenesis of the universe, which is in turn tied to our mother planet. Mother Earth adapted to universal conditions, and we adapted with her. We have been remaking ourselves in accord with the planet all along. We still are. When Earth was a fluid welling mass, so were we. When Earth cooled and continents rose out of the sea, so did we. The fish, plants, amphibians, and mammals all adapted to the changing Earth, each in their own way. Some moved to land and their bodies transformed. When humans evolved on land, we also changed, becoming closer to our current form. All living things are the children of Mother Earth. We grew up together like brothers and sisters in a family. There was once an intimate relationship between the human and all of the creatures. We are their relatives. What we often dismiss as lower life forms, such as viruses and bacteria, are radically important to our existence. Germs germinate. They are a primary basis of life. They help create us too. It is not only the chimpanzee that is our relative. All of creation is related. Bacteria and viruses are very much a part of us. They create us, and they can sustain us, coexisting harmoniously. But if we or they are out of balance, they can kill. The world is now learning this lesson. We must come back into balance. The way to do that is to remember who we are, a microcosm of the macrocosm, related and interdependent with all there is. To fully realize this truth is to open the heart in joyful ecstasy. What a blessing it is to be alive, an integral part of the whole. Okay. Let me stop there. I'm going to ask for some feedback. But by the way, the aforementioned Paula Gunn Allen, also in the 2004 dialogue, said something else where she said something indelibly imprinted on my brain when she said, you know, that Human Genome Project was supposed to find out how unique humans were, but we found out we have 98.5% the same DNA as a chimpanzee and 50% the same DNA as a banana. So I always remember that because I think it's really important. So I wanted to stop there and invite some, this is the archaic, this is the womb-like beginning of the book. And any questions, comments, thoughts that emerge? The floor is open.
I would like to have you explore the idea of suffering, that in an earth where the way of living, as you know, is creatures eating creatures suffering, and it's not a peaceful world. It's a world of pain and suffering, and I don't know how to square it with this idea of universal love. I suppose, or maybe you can deal with that. How can you put those two disparate things, the extraordinary suffering that all creatures have, with this kind of universal love. I think the way you can probably deal with it is how you will define love and accommodate for this ugly side.
Okay. I can respond to that in a number of ways. Thank you very much for that interesting comment. Well, you know, I humbly submit that for me, I don't think that I would disagree with the idea that nature is suffering. But you know, everybody's entitled to view it any way you want. I mean, it was Woody Allen that once said that, you know, nature's like a giant restaurant, you know, everybody's eating everybody else or something, you know, but which I found very humorous. Even Charles Darwin, I apologize if this sounds so trivial, but it wasn't until the 5th edition of The Origin of Species that the phrase survival of the fittest came in. And it was not his phrase, it was Herbert Spencer's phrase. So it was who made that famous. Charles Darwin did not say that, and he didn't. I'm sorry?
Oh, we're just having internet issues, which we almost never have here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can again. So Herbert Spencer introduced the phrase to.
Yeah, he introduced the phrase "survival of the fittest." I would submit that the natural world is much more about cooperation than it is about suffering. Now, suffering is something that you know, I do want to get into, and I really appreciate that comment, and I will read something from what I wrote about love and loss, because I do think that love evokes the whole, and wholeness evokes love. When we feel whole, we feel accepted, we feel expanded in our consciousness. Many people who are about to cross over, and if they come back, then we call it a near-death experience. Maybe it's just a death experience, but they come back. But in any case, when they come back, they will report this immense love that they felt because they felt interconnected with all. That's why I'm probably writing in that beginning 3 pages about you. Most of us have to die to, you know, to feel this wholeness, but you can come home while you're alive. You know, it's possible to feel this. It's possible. So, yeah, I do. I will want to read something about love and loss, but let me also just leave it open if anybody else has some comments first on this. Robin. Okay.
Yeah, so I've been working on art project that has to do with our species and our link to the primordial watery time, and you know, suggesting that we still feel that origin of water, and then I'm also dealing with deep time and like how short a time humans have been here compared to 4.6 billion years of Earth, right? And so our species hasn't been here that long, but we still have this connection to, you know, the 4.6 billion years ago. So I guess what I'm dealing with is, have we been here longer than the human species? I mean, if you go back to our watery beginning, can you count that as part of the human species? And I don't know if that makes sense at all.
It makes perfect sense, and yes, I think you can count it. I mean, but you know, before when I was in my 20s, I was a theosophist. I don't know how many people have, you know, I mean, and I used to go to the Theosophical Society in New York City when I lived in New York City for just 2.5 years as an adult. I was actually born there too, but the Theosophists believe this is all true. I mean, and what Madame Blavatsky would say is man is a spark from God on a return trip there too, and I believe that's true. Now, you don't necessarily have to believe it literally or not, but I do think, and that chapter that I read you is partly channeled in a lot of ways, but partly also a poetic way to explain that arc of involution and evolution, really, which is also a Vedic term for, you come from pure spirit, you descend into form, and then you're going back towards spirit. That's why for the Vedic philosophers and poets like Sri Aurobindo he often compares this arc to the lotus plant that roots itself in the muck and mire of the pond, but then reemerges in this most beautiful unfolding. It's like that really speaks to me. I think that seems to be true of our human experience, and it could be interpreted the way I would interpret it is that where the Bible begins, which I barely speak about in Original Love, but where the Bible begins might be where Adam and Eve first are realize that they are naked, and so that's spirit, pure spirit, descending into matter until it takes physical form. They realize they're naked, but then their entire journey from there is a return arc toward spirit, toward wholeness, toward wholeness. It's really very beautiful. It feels right to me. I mean, I can't say nobody is required to believe as I do. That is not necessary in any regard. And you still may enjoy the book, or enjoy this evening. But, it's, I feel that in my heart, that we are returning to wholeness and that we came from wholeness. And I also believe in my heart that humanity actually goes back way, way further than what is understood by Western science, because they're only looking for the physical traces. And so we're talking about the invisible traces, the essence that precedes the coming into form. So who knows? In my view, everything has an essence that preceded its form. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I do want to, because of what you said, Robin, I'd like to read something from, also from part 1, which is about timelessness, which is really a very important part of this book. And yeah, this is this is called Respect, Kinship, and Love. And I wrote this because of input from my indigenous friends, particularly Aborigine people I've spoken to, who were concerned about the word love. They're concerned about the word love because it's been used in isolation by religious groups to take away the lands of Aborigine peoples, to take away their language, to take away their culture as much as they could get away with. So what they said to me really, I took that into my heart and I said, yes, the word love needs support. There was something that was said earlier. Someone asked about that. How do I define love? I should say, by the way, I never define love. I don't think love is definable. I don't think it's definable. I think it's so beautiful, so cosmic, so enormous that it's better for me to just speak about love with the metaphors of nature, the natural world. And that's what I do in the book. I do respect certain people like the ancient Greeks, that looked at the aspects of love, storge, familial love, and, eros, erotic love, and agape, universal love. And I respect Eric Fromm, who also spoke about aspects of love, or anybody that's done that, because at least if you're talking about aspects of love, you're at least trying to grasp this enormous thing, and you're recognizing that it has different aspects. But anyway, love itself needs more aspects, needs more support, I would say. So this is called respect, kinship, and love, and it comes from a chapter called The Timeless Wisdom of Respect, Kinship, and Love. And I should say, I won't read it, but I begin that chapter with a story that Dan Moonhawk Alford told me, which is when he was a 10-year-old boy, he went to his father's workplace, and his father was a longshoresman working on the California coast, up among the tall trees. And they spent the morning on a jitney, and they were stacking up logs, which was great fun for a boy. But then they took their lunch break, and they were dangling their legs over the Pacific Ocean. And Moonhawk had never seen the ocean before. So he says to his father, "Dad, that sure is a lot of water out there." And his father said, "Yep, and that's just the top of it." Okay? And that's just the top of it. So Moonhawk liked to tell that story because he told it to speak about native wisdom and how it was steeped in so many layers of experience. And I agree with him there, but I would say the same thing about love. Love is unknowable. What do we say about the ocean when we are measuring it? We measure it in fathoms, which are units of about 6 feet wide. You hold your arms out and it gets about 6 feet. But the actual depth of the ocean is maybe we have some instruments to measure it now, but basically for so long, it was thought of as unfathomable, a really good metaphor for the collective unconscious, so that's how the chapter begins. And now I want to read the part called Respect, Kinship, and Love. For the Navajo, what Western astronomy calls the Big Dipper, Cassiopeia, and Polaris are part of a related group of stars known as the Nahokos constellation. The Nahokos constellation is composed of 3 parts. The first 2, Nahokos Bika, the male revolving one, and Nahokos Bi'ad, the female revolving one, revolve around a central fire, or Nahokos Biko, that in Western astronomy is called the North Star, or Polaris. Together they form a family. Thinking of the stars in relational terms makes them not only our ancestors, but our relatives. It is family that orients us to our place in the world. It is family that teaches us our original concepts of respect, kinship, and love. The Navajo have long understood celestial beings as having roles, mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, and so forth, within a kinship system of family, clan, tribe, and community called Ke in Navajo. The sun, earth, moon, self, shadow also constitute a relationship. Importantly, Ke refers not only to kinship relations, but to kindness and compassion. Imagine the shift in mainstream culture if we reoriented our definition of love away from romantic connection between 2 people and instead adopted a kinship system of kindness and compassion that included all our human and non-human relations. Everything would shift. It is a question of identity. If we identify with only ourselves and our romantic partners and family, or with only other humans, Our hearts tend to become closed to the natural world, and we justify our domination over nature. But if we realize that our existence depends upon the existence of all other creatures, our hearts open to the idea that everything has a right to exist. We treat all of creation in a loving manner. The concepts of K may seem unusual to some listeners in this case, but originally all human beings thought of love in kinship terms. All our relations, the entire natural world of plants, trees, animal, vegetable, mineral, were all kin, all part of one family. Nature fed us spiritually, emotionally, and yes, sometimes physically. It is for this reason that traditional native hunting has never been a sport, but a spiritual discipline undertaken with prayer and respect for the spirit of the animal and the sacredness of all life. For even in prey-predator relations, there's an element of love in the act of surrender. The prey in the end surrenders to their fate. To love is to respect. In many indigenous cultures, the words for love and respect are synonymous. There may be phrases for saying I love you, but these expressions are rarely used. For instance, Navajo expressions ayu anashine or ayu nishne are generally translated as I love you, but anashine actually means regard or respect. There's never been an exact Navajo equivalent for the English love. Simply put, to love is to respect. So that actually goes a little bit, I don't know if she's still with us, but the question that was first asked, Lisa, she was sitting by you?
Yeah, Eileen asked.
Eileen, yeah. Yeah, so she asked about, prey-predator relations. That's another, I didn't think of it at the time, but it's actually in that reading that I believe there is an element of love when in prey-predator relations. It's not often depicted that way, but I mean, if you have a cat, you've seen it probably if your cat goes outside. And you've seen the way, I have a wonderful cat, Cappuccino, who I first got because I was living in an old house, casita, that was 75-year-old adobe, and it had been vacant before I moved in, and there was quite a bit of mice there. In fact, when I was there a few days before when my wife came up, I said, let's meet for lunch first, which we did. And then I said, okay, now we're going to the animal shelter. She said, why? I said, because you wouldn't want to sleep here tonight otherwise. So we went to the animal shelter. And actually, Cappuccino was so sweet. We didn't choose Cappuccino first. We brought our dog there. We chose another cat. But that cat was with our dog, Sunrise was her name. And so we said, okay, let's give Cappuccino a chance. And it was love at first sight between Cappuccino and Sunrise. And Cappuccino somehow was also a good mouser. It's amazing how that cat could be such a loving being, and he also kills. But when he kills, of course, he does exactly what your parents told you not to do. He plays with his food. He brings the mouse or whatever into a bathtub and plays with it for quite some time. And eventually the mouse does surrender to its fate. I've watched it happen, and so that's from firsthand experience. I don't think I don't think the mouse hates the cat. I don't think the cat hates the mouse. I think it's part of nature, and humans, I mean, if we've taken antibiotics, I've met a lot of people that say, I won't kill anything, including I've probably uttered that from my own mouth because when I was very young, I was attracted to the Jain religion and I didn't want to kill anything at all. But I have taken antibiotics, and if I take antibiotics, I am killing millions, millions upon millions of microscopic creatures. It's almost like throwing an atomic bomb to get one terrorist or something. You know, it's really kind of crazy. So, yeah, anyway. Any thoughts about respect, kinship, and love?
I have a questions or just an
Sure.
opinion about the idea of humans valuing other humans, this idea of universal love, and throughout all of history, you know, the humans have always gone after the, you know, there's a priority, there's dominant and the supplicants, and there's, it's not been a happy kingdom ever. And with humans amongst humans, that, you know, they're different than, or just taking over other people's livelihoods, just because it seems, I won't say it's human nature, but if you go through from early humanity right through to now, it has been pretty awful in terms of the way humans treat other humans. And it's not just to get things from them, but more nourishment, more status. But it's just, it seems like it's inbuilt. And how can you put that together in this universal love? I mean, as I said before, it's hard to do it without redefining what you mean by love. And you said you couldn't define it. That's one of the things you said earlier. I cannot define love. But I think it's important to be able to define what you're saying about love, so that you take in the whole picture, the ugly parts as well.
This might be a good place to bring up the myth of separation. I don't know
Well,
if you talk about it.
if you want to.
I'll
You're-
wait till you answer your question. I might bring it up then, yeah.
Okay. Well, Eileen, I don't know if you're familiar with Gimbutas,
No.
the research that she did, which was also followed up very powerfully by Rian Eisler. A lot of people would agree with the statement that it's human nature always been dominant, supplicant, and often there's a lot of research that's been done, particularly with chimpanzees, to suggest that correlation. Of course, they don't usually look at bonobos and, you know, in different kind of societies that are actually not a masculine driven, but. According to Gimbutas and Rian Eisler and many others, including the woman I was speaking of just this morning, who's a Jungian analyst, Anne Baring, who's been very influential upon me, wrote some wonderful books called The Myth of the Goddess with Jules Cashford, and has also written a new book about the forgotten feminine face of God. According to all of them, they propose that in ancient cultures from 20,000 BC and earlier, that actually humanity was not warlike at all. And that these cultures were, they were goddess cultures. I'd like to read something from that next, perhaps, to answer your question. because it's very, very interesting. And I think there's some profound reason to believe it might be true. And I'm going to read you something that may be somewhat persuasive, or not. But that's what I feel. I feel, and it's somewhat Gebserian. It's somewhat also from Vedic cosmology. The idea that there was wholeness, there was peace, there was harmony, and then we went through other stages. And really, it's just the arc of human evolution is so huge that we tend to think of like 20,000 years as like everything happened there, but there could have been even before then. And according to the Mongolian shamans, in 21,000 years ago, that's when we were peaceful and we were in this era of the womb of the mother. So, okay, so I want to read something. This is really good stuff from the great goddess cultures. And I know that you as Jungians, you probably know about this already. So, but I think that it might be approached from a little bit different way here. The archaic and magical eras preceding the age of myth can be thought of as primarily feminine ages, which is partly why I began this book by describing how it might feel to be in the womb of Mother Earth. In archaic times, there was no boundary between Mother Earth, the source of all things, and the self. In the magical era, the beginning of a separation emerges, but the veil between the world and the self remained thin. Thus, it makes perfect sense that at the dawn of the mythical age, goddess cultures predominated. The great goddess is an all-encompassing symbol of the unity of the whole. She is a symbol of love, for love is what makes us whole. She is the eternal source, earth and heaven, life and death. She did not create the natural world from the outside in. She is nature. Like Spider-Woman spinning the world from her belly, it is from goddess nature that the birth of everything emerges. Her womb creates and contains all there is, including the masculine principle. She is a virgin goddess in the original sense of the word. She carries within her the totality of life, including the power to fertilize herself. Through her, all of nature emerged, including humanity. Through her, the human took our place in sacred loving relation with the whole. The age of myth began with goddess worship in remote antiquity, and goddess cultures continued uninterrupted from Paleolithic and Neolithic times until the middle of the Bronze Age, which began around 3500 BC and lasted until 1250 BC. At the dawn of the Bronze Age, when the bulk of humanity lived in agricultural communities, goddess worship remained strong. But with the shift from agricultural communities to villages and city-states around the middle of the Bronze Age, coupled with the influx of Aryan and Semitic warrior invaders, goddess worship slowly began to recede in Europe, India, and elsewhere. As patriarchal cultures began to supplant goddess cultures, humanity increasingly separates itself from our origins, what Lisa was getting at. We become increasingly apart from nature, which at her root comes from the Latin natura, meaning birth. It was Mother Earth we were born from, and she who nurtured us. When we separated from the Mother Goddess, it was painful. No longer held in her arms, we were separated from her wholeness, from her total, all-embracing love. The goddess never completely disappeared, of course. She simply became buried in the deeper recesses of our consciousness, where she resides today. The same can be said for archaic and magical consciousness. They too remain inside of us in the collective consciousness of humanity. Why were goddess cultures initially predominant? And why did the shift to patriarchy occur? It is not a coincidence that the very first rituals were centered on the feminine experience. The very word ritual comes from the Sanskrit word ritu, meaning menses. Women's periodic bleeding was considered a cosmic event. The female body was known to be the most important link between the personal and the universal. Women were considered a sacred conduit to the rhythms of nature. While all people were affected by lunar cycles, the relationship between the phases of the moon and women's menstrual cycles was readily observable. The ability of women to bear children, to be life givers and primary nurturers, was once universally revered. The sacred triangle of antiquity is known to represent the vulva and is found on all the earliest cave carvings. The vulva was a tremendously important symbol beyond the human realm. It represented a gateway between heaven and earth, the womb of all things, not only human fertility. This point cannot be emphasized enough. This is why I spoke earlier of the black hole in the center of the Milky Way as being the womb of our galaxy. The vulva represented not just personal fertility, but all fertility throughout the cosmos. And this is why the great goddess came to represent the cornucopia of agricultural abundance, prosperity, health, wholeness, and love. For all these reasons, the oldest cultures on Earth were goddess worshippers. I think that's enough read from there. Now, again, this is a possible explanation for how humanity, how love, humanity, nature, and consciousness co-evolved. I believe it to be true. You can believe as you wish. As you wish. Any other questions before?
Yes, I would have a question.
Thank you, Gregory. Sure.
It's just, I mean, everything is perspective, and I'm not Jepserian, but I get that the perspective itself changed the way we see things. And from the beginning, we talk about wholeness. And so consciousness naturally is a word that comes back again and again in the background of this discussion. Why, at least in my mind, I feel like if we equate the emergence of humanity in this world, the embodied humanity, it also coincides with the emergence of consciousness. And with the emergence of consciousness, you pointed at the Christian myth of the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, comes suffering. And I wonder, I mean, instinctively, yes, there would be the tendency to see suffering as an opposite of love, but maybe not. And it almost feels like if I look at it from the perspective of consciousness, that love is actually linked with something linked with longing, with being separated. And from a Jungian perspective, I would bring the idea of the opposites. We speak often in this group about holding the opposite. And if I try to see what polarity we are talking about here, I would maybe clumsily see love on one side, and on the other pole, this idea of separation. But they need to be together, meaning that you mentioned the place for the native people as the origin. It's almost like there is a nostalgia, a longing for an origin that that make us feel love. On the other side, there is also the other person, and the idea of relationship. If there is another, if there is a stranger, then there can be love, because there is a separation, and it feels like there is a longing to bridge that separation. And without the separation, basically the polarity collapse. So I wonder, and that's more like the meta question, how we can bridge this consciousness logic of bridging to feel love, with the unconscious state that you described at the beginning as something like wholeness.
Beautiful. That's so beautiful, and I am going to yeah, it's very important now that I read a section called Love and Loss, and it's going to speak to not just what you're speaking about, Gregory, but what Eileen has been speaking about too. And before I do that, I want to ceremoniously, I'm unwrapping this. Oh, I unwrapped it too. This is a dark covered heart, and this I'm sharing with your group. And I'm also, this is partly a gift to Lisa because she loves chocolate so much. So, dark chocolate. What a symbol of love. This is good. Very, very good. Okay. And now I will read, as soon as I finish eating this, about love and loss. And this is going to go right to what you were saying, Gregory, and also some of what Eileen was saying earlier. Love and loss. Because love evokes wholeness, we feel empty when love seems lost. Love provided us such joy. Without love, life can lose meaning. When we lose a wife or a husband or a father, mother, sister, brother, son, daughter, or friend, the pain can be unbearable. It can be so overwhelming we cannot function. Death feels permanent, irreversible, irreconcilable. It can feel even worse if there were unresolved conflicts, differences, or regrets about what one did or did not do to help a loved one. Among the most tragic cases are suicide or loss of a child. In the former, the challenge is to forgive oneself, to release the guilt around what one could have done to prevent your loved one from taking their own life. The suicide of a child is a twofold blow because we lament what we might have done to prevent it on top of the devastating grief. To lose a child, no matter the reason, is outside the natural order. We are supposed to die before our children. If they die first, it can be profoundly confusing. It can feel like nothing makes sense, and we can lose our sense of purpose. To live in this world is to suffer loss. No one is immune. To have a loved one die is obviously difficult, but grief can come with any loss. A breakup with a lover can be enormously hurtful, especially but not only for young people. Many breakups are chillingly heartless. The modern phenomenon of being ghosted, where all contact is suddenly cut off, is increasingly common. Ghosting may be a new thing, but unrequited love is not. One of the hardest lessons to learn, but perhaps the most important, is that grief can be a teacher. Grief can be a teacher on many levels. First, it shows us how much we have loved, because we often do not realize this until our loved one is gone. Second, grief teaches us something about the essence of love, that love is permanent even as the physical relationship may not be. Third, and perhaps most difficult to realize, grief can be a gift. Our wound can become the source of our creativity. Walt Whitman elegantly expressed the latter point in his poem, Sometimes with One I Love, about unrequited love, which he calls unreturned love. Sometimes with one I love, I fill myself with rage for fear I effuse unreturned love. But now I think there is no unreturned love. The pay is certain one way or another. I loved a certain person ardently, and my love was not returned. Yet out of this I have written these songs. This Whitman poem gets to the heart of love, its wholeness, its eternal well of remembrance. Loss gives us an opportunity to delve deeper into love than we might ever have done before. It is in this way that loss can become transmuted into a gift. I do not mean to imply that pain or loss can simply go away or easily be alleviated. Yet what seems to be lost forever truly is not, for the wound awakens the soul in a mirror image of the way Eros does. Eros teaches us there is something more to life, awakening our deadened senses. A lover's touch quickens the pulse, arouses the senses, and brings us into our body in sensual delight, all of which help us realize the fullness of life. Grief does the same in reverse. It rips away the fullness of life that we may not have even known we had. The wound can become our teacher, the source of our inspiration. Through pain, blackness, and death, the longing for soul emerges, which is why the Spanish poet and playwright Federico Garcia Lorca referred to as duende. Duende is a gypsy word popularized by Lorca, meaning the spirit of the earth. It is a spontaneous expression of passion and soul that climbs up inside you from the soles of the feet. In response to the question, where is the duende, Lorca writes, through the empty archway a wind of the spirit enters, blowing insistently over the heads of the dead, in search of new landscapes and unknown accents. A wind with the odor of a child's saliva, crushed grass, and Medusa's veil, announcing the endless baptism of freshly created things. Grief not only evokes soul, it can also bring a fervent desire for the divine. Grief and longing for the divine are intertwined, writes Mirabai Starr, who should know, for she lost her teenage daughter in an auto accident the same day she released her first book, a translation of Dark Night of the Soul by St. John of the Cross. Mirabai traces the beginning of her spiritual life to the day her daughter died. Her case is particularly dramatic, but all of us who live in the flesh have suffered great loss. Once we have tasted the bitterness of loss, the key is what we do with it. If we can see the longing of our grief as the portal to union, our wound becomes our spiritual yearning. Divine love never dies. It cannot, because it is the underlying vibration of the cosmos. So, yeah.
Thank you, Glenn.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, no, I didn't mean to give the impression that I'm all, maybe I did, because I start from the beginning where everything is wholeness, everything is love, pure love, nothing but love. But there is, in this human life, we do suffer loss, we do suffer anguish, we do suffer anxiety, we suffer a lot. But that suffering, as you eloquently said, Gregory, is not an opposite of love. It is a complement of love. It completes it. It was Gibran who said, "Our joy is our sorrow unmasked." That was in The Prophet, which is a 97-page book that has, I believe, sold more copies than any other book except the Bible. It's filled with a lot of wisdom. It was actually given to me by my high school girlfriend in August of 1973. And it's funny, I ran into her years later and she said, "Oh, I got past Gibran." And I did have the presence of mind to say, "No, I don't think you get past Gibran." I don't think that you can do that, but Uh, any thoughts from this beautiful group? I've really taken a liking to this group. I mean, God, you're so blessed. You have such good, deep souls among you. So,
We do. Does anybody here have anything?
Well, you did bring up or introduce here recently the term soul
mm,
that entered the conversation recently. Um, and if we hold these two words together, love and soul,
beautiful.
And combine them with the book we're reading, The Earth Has a Soul.
Mm. Yeah, well, I wrote quite a. I'm sorry, John. You want to
No.
complete that thought, or?
well, I'm not sure I can. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I did write quite a bit about soul, and maybe I'll read you. I had this amazing experience actually when I finished the first two parts of the book. I thought I was taking a break. And I went up to one of my favorite places on the planet, which is the confluence of the Rio Grande and the Red River. And it was on a very cold winter's day in January of 2024. And it was there that I was the only person there at the confluence. That's not normal, but it was exceptionally cold day. So I had the place to myself, and I said a prayer, put down some tobacco, said a prayer, and then I was marveling at this wonderful confluence, which I have seen. I've walked all the way down. I did that once with my friend Mike Three Bears.
Well,
and
you're sure it's at this end? No, it hasn't been up there.
you guys are not on mute.
It hasn't been up there.
Okay.
The other end, or
Sorry,
David and Lisa, yeah.
repeat yourself. We were having some internet issues at this end and you froze. So you're at the confluence of the Rio Grande and the Red River, and it's very cold.
Okay, all right, sorry. Okay, that's where it froze? Okay, all right, so, well, that's very fitting because I was talking about freezing weather, so I might have evoked it. But in any case, the thing that I wanted to tell you most about that is that in January, on a very cold day, all of a sudden, and I can show you the video, I have it on my phone because I videoed there, and all of a sudden moths appeared. And there should not be moths in January. I don't know if it's because climate change or whatnot, but there were moths appeared. But, it occurred to me that the moth, in addition to the butterfly, and most people think of it as the butterfly, the Greek word for soul, psyche, is also the word for butterfly or moth. And so here I was at this beautiful confluence where I think of soul as this merging of perspective, its place. It's a bringing together of experiences, place, memory, soul. All of that emerges from that place. And there were these moths. And that made me want to write about Psyche and Eros, which I did. So even though Love in Modern Times was supposed to be the part 3 and remained the title of part 3, I actually began it with some nature writing and then told the story of Psyche and Eros, which I'm sure this group knows. I love telling the story, but it would take me about 10, 15 minutes. I don't know that you already know the story, right? Because you're Jungians, right? But the thing that's most important to me about the story of Psyche and Eros, the reason why I wanted to tell it for this book, is that, when Aphrodite assigns the task to Psyche to do, and I took a little poetic license and called those 4 labors of love. All of those tasks are solved with the involvement of the entire natural world. None of those tasks are solved through Psyche alone, or it's always Psyche as a nexus to the whole of nature, to the anima mundi, to the soul of the world, the other book that you are apparently reading. So yeah, the first task, as you may recall, she had to separate a giant pile of seeds by an appointed hour, and there's no way she could have done that herself. But she prays, and ant nation comes, and the ants separate the seeds in the appointed hour. And in the second task, she's supposed to gather the fleece from battering rams, and she has no idea how she's going to do this because the battering ram would be aggressive if approached. And she's ready to give up, but a reed comes out from the bottom of the river, a little like we were talking before about the lotus plant. The reed is really a symbol also perhaps of the sacred feminine, rooted to the earth. And the reed tells her exactly what she needs to do. And the reed says you need to gather the fleece in the dark of night where the rams have gone against the trees and brushed up against. And so that's how she succeeds. And in the third task, she's supposed to gather the waters of the underworld from the top of a mountain that's guarded by dragons. So how is she going to do that? She has no idea. But she prays, and Zeus sends an eagle, and the eagle offers his services and can even, gathers the sacred vessel in his talons and flies between the dragons and successfully returns with the waters of life. And then in the fourth task, she has to go to get the beauty ointment of Persephone. And that's, of course, perhaps the hardest task of all. And that one almost reminds me of the movie Vertigo, which I'm sure you've probably seen, because she's climbing the tower to throw herself off. She's going to commit suicide until the tower speaks to her. The tower tells her what to do. I think that is so magnificent. And it's so very indigenous to me. This is the way indigenous stories all are. So must be a very, very old story. And, of course, the tower tells her where the gates of the underworld are and tells her to put 2 coins in her mouth and have 2 morsels of bread so that she can feed 1 morsel to the 3-headed dog Cerberus so he'll be distracted and she can go in and give 1 coin to the ferryman on the way in and the other one is for the ferryman on the way out. And she succeeds in all of that until she lapses. She lapses because vanity gets the better of her and she opens the jar, which she's been strictly forbidden to do. But it's grandmother Flor de Mayo, one of my teachers, who lives in New Mexico. She was one of the 13 of the International Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers. Grandmother Flor de Mayo likes to teach about staying on the path. She has an organization called The Path, and she always makes the point that everybody, even when you're on the most beautiful spiritual path, you will lapse. So, Psyche represents all of us. It's not just a woman that lapses because of vanity. Everybody has a psyche, and everybody lapses. Everybody walks off the path, but everybody can get back on the path. So it's just so beautiful. So yeah, no, there's a lot about soul in the book because obviously Psyche is the goddess of soul, which I guess some people have credited to Aretha Franklin too, but still. but mostly we think of Psyche. So I want to read you one more thing because we're getting close to this This is probably I find to be some of the most beautiful part of the book that came through, and it's near the very end, and it's from chapter 15, which is called Undivided Presence, the Manifestation of Original Love. And here's what I'm saying here. I'm talking about modern times and what's coming through. And I say, you want to come up? What we are experiencing is tantamount to a shamanic dismemberment. We need to dismember in order to remember. We need to put ourselves back together again in ways that are healthy and whole. We are compelled to reconstruct the whole out of what has been torn apart. We are being called to dig deeper into our psyche. When we go deep, we find indigenous and feminine wisdom and original love buried in the depths of our unconscious. This perennial wisdom and love is analogous to a lotus plant that roots itself at the bottom of the pond. The lotus travels through the muck and mire to take root, only to reemerge into the light and unfurl its beautiful petals. In a sense, we are the lotus, for no matter how unloved we may feel, how stuck in the mud, the soul's desire is to surface from the depths of despair and merge with the beloved. That desire may be hidden for quite some time, but can never be extinguished. We come from love and return to love. That pathway to the beloved is fixed in our soul. Love is as deep as the oceans and as vast as the cosmos. Love includes all. This was the original way humanity thought of love until we narrowed its meaning to human romance, and at last, this larger meaning is breaking through. The wider undivided presence of original love is reemerging from source. The power of love is ever present. Love from the source, the ancient wisdom of ceremony. I liken the emergence of time-free consciousness, this chapter is talking about time-free consciousness, to that of a long dormant volcano erupting. Lava is liquid fire, a truly unique substance. It not only unites the below with the above, lava unites all the elements. While erupting, lava flows out onto the land and clears away everything in its path, then continues all the way to the ocean, a symbol of eternity, and in the process builds more land. Fire, water, air, and earth are all brought together in volcanic activity. In the ancient story told by Empedocles, which I shared earlier, it is love that unites the elements and strife that separates them. Is lava a form of love from Mother Earth's core? I say yes, and an extremely passionate form of love, for it is love from the source, love from the very birth canal of Mother Earth. Pele, the Hawaiian lava goddess, is said to have given birth to all the Hawaiian islands. Lava is passionate love that creates life, but also death. A volcanic eruption is awe-inspiring because it is duende, a marriage of life and death, a coming together of inspiration, passion, soul, and love. And that's probably all I need to read at this point, but because I want to leave some time for more discussion. But, it's a joy to interact with you. So I want to hear some, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And
Well, the search for the beloved, in combination with the beloved being, Earth, it reminds me of the initiation ritual described by Martine Prechtel.
oh, Martine.
another neighbor of yours down there in New Mexico.
Yeah.
You know, where he took the young men, you know, through this, I think it was even a 9-month ritual, now that I think about it. 9 months
You
being,
say you left somebody in.
yeah, for the boys who are just starting to be attracted to the girls, to find their true beloved in the earth.
Hmm.
So that they don't project, you know, this image of the goddess onto women who don't measure up. The true beloved is the earth. That's the goddess. And so women can just be women, you know. They don't need to be the goddess too.
That's great. Okay. I think it's great. Anybody, any other thoughts? I thank you for that. It's good to see you, Robert, there. Hello.
Hi, Glenn.
Hi.
I have known women who were quite happy to play the goddess.
Yeah, we could say all women are the goddess also, but yeah, but I take Lisa's point. You don't have to, the pressure doesn't have to be on. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
We do projection and recollection another week. One quick aside.
So don't play the goddess right now.
Yeah. Just the words, soul and the word love, and we talk about that a lot, like the word. There is no definition in a dictionary of either of these words that will be adequate. That will contain. So our experience of what, and Helmut was talking about this, to speak of soul is something that we do contextually together. And the same as you have said with love. If any of us individually wants to come up with a concise, rational definition, it's never going to happen.
That's right. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. Are you complete, John? Anyone else have something they wanted to add?
That's a trick question.
No, that's all I wanted.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I completely agree, you know, and I say so. And it's actually, I think a number of people, including the famous architect, I'm blanking on his name now, Frank Lloyd Wright, have said to define it is to confine it, you know. So I agree. That's why I do not try to define love, but I do like to use imagery from the natural world to evoke love. And that's what I think the great poets have done, you know, especially those Sufi mystics who, when they speak of the beloved, they're talking about the beloved in all of creation. They're not talking about this, you know, one woman. No. Anybody
Glenn,
else? Yes,
yeah,
Jeff.
I have a
Good.
throughout your uh, talk, it sounds like you're equating wholeness with love. Is that right? Is love wholeness? I know you don't want to define it, but is it equate? Can you equate love and wholeness?
No, I'm not exactly equating it, but I'm saying that love evokes wholeness and wholeness evokes love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not equating them, or it's just that there is a reciprocal relationship between them.
All right.
And when we feel whole, we tend to feel love. But yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all interconnected.
Robert.
Yeah,
Yes.
I kind of think of love as an archetypal attribute of the soul
Mm-hmm.
that expresses itself in the personality, where the soul and the ego come together to make the personality.
Hmm. Um, yeah, I mean, ego is a funny word for me because I know that it wasn't even invented till the 19th century, and so I'm not gonna hang my hat on ego at all. But soul speaks to me a lot more. It speaks to my soul. It
Yeah,
just.
right.
But most Western societies believe that we must develop the ego before we can then release it. And I think Carl Jung is saying that, right? You're the Jungians, but saying that you develop that in the first half of life, and the second half of life, you're releasing that, and you're merging more with the collective. You're expanding your consciousness, which to me is very loving. The more you expand consciousness, the more loving you will be. But I'm not convinced that people have to ever develop an ego in the way that the West thinks of it. So, according to
I agree with that.
according to my Blackfoot, mentor Leroy Little Bear, I mean, there was no word for I at all in Blackfoot. So it would be hard to imagine having an ego, but because he speaks English, he undoubtedly does have one. And there's been 500 years of contact, but maybe before 500 years before then, maybe there really wasn't a need for an ego in that society, that really the people were connected deeper in a deeper bond. Anybody else? I wanted to.
But I'm just going to add one thing to that, Glenn. I really like the fact that in these three books you weave in all the American Indian experience. I think that's very important in America.
Well, yeah, I mean, the second book, Original Politics, the foundational premise is how much Native America influenced the core values of the nation,
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that very much.
liberty, yeah, life, liberty, natural rights. I think even the phrase that the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is a little bit of an awkward phrase, but I think it comes in Native America they would speak about blessing. What grandfather Leon Secretero spoke about when he spoke about the formation of the cosmos, and he had no egoic bone in his body, none at all. Lisa, you've met him. So I'm trying to think if anybody. No, I don't think anybody else on the call has met Leon. Uh, Leon told me in a matter-of-fact way that the cosmos has always been here, and then he added that that's something that he knows to be true, not something just his opinion. So what does that mean? It means that it's a blessing. It wasn't a creation. But in Western culture, it's really hard to think like that, and our language doesn't almost allow it because we're not just English, but all Indo-European languages, as you can read in Lisa's book as well, are all they're very much dependent upon tense. So we have to conceive of things as having a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's really hard for us. And Moonhawk liked to quote from the beginning of Carlos Castaneda's The Active Side of Infinity. There were two poems that were said. One is the scientist who's proven with his mathematical equations that the universe began at a certain time and it's going to end at a certain time. And then there's another, but he says at the end of the poem that the cosmologist never realizes that what he has done is only prove the syntax of his mother tongue. And then he does the second poem, and the second poem is about the universe never began and will never end. It's just increasing fluctuations and intensities of experience. So then it goes, but at the end of the second poem, It also says he's certain of his belief, but never realizes that he's only proving the syntax of his mother tongue. So it's kind of every worldview has blind spots. Every worldview has blind spots. I'm not trying to say that the indigenous worldview is correct and Western worldviews are wrong, but there is, for me, it's very liberating to think of the cosmos as always being here and to be as a blessing. And every day I wake up and I feel so blessed to be alive, and I pray about, I mean,
I
I'm
think
not,
that's very important in America, though. I think that recognizing that Native American culture is extremely important. And I lived in Mexico a number
yeah.
of years, and Mexico is the most American of nations because it's really they have created their own race. They don't celebrate Columbus Day. They celebrate the day of the race, which is the mestizo, the mixture
Oh,
of Spanish
yeah,
and native.
yeah, yeah,
So, and they've
yeah.
mixed the cultures as well.
Well,
So,
Lisa, let me ask you a question. I'm sorry to.
no,
So,
it's okay.
we started a little late. Can we run a little over, or what do you guys normally do?
We usually acknowledge the time, and if people have to go, we say thank you for being here, and you can go. But if you want to keep talking, we'll keep talking, but you don't have to stay if you've got
Okay,
places to
thank
go.
you for that. I appreciate that very much. So I do want to bring it back to love for a moment, and then I want to share a poem, which I do think is a really powerful poem, and then we can keep talking if you like, but I just wanted within the appointed hour. I want to share that because I think it's really important. Because to me, yes, I don't define love. I don't think you can define love. I think love is more than almost anything that it's ever been defined as. It's more than an emotion. It's more than a feeling. It's more than a force. It's more than a vibration. So that's why I feel it's better to think of it in terms of the beauty of nature. So the poem by Rumi, the one that really speaks to me goes like this, At at night I open my window and ask the moon to come and press its face against mine. Breathe into me. Close the language door and open the love window. The moon won't use the door, only the window.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it is wonderful, isn't it? And then and that poem evoked something for me also that my wife told me. Thank you for the rising hearts, I see. And that was Tomoko, my wife, told me about something that Natsume Soseki said. And Natsume Soseki was a Meiji era philosophy instructor, but also an instructor of the English language. And he had his students there, and he asked his students of English how they would translate the English "I love you." And his students said, "Kimi o aisu." And the reason why they said that is Kimi means you and I means love. So that was a literal translation, right? But then Soseki says, no, that's not the correct translation. The right translation would be Honya no ski ga kire desu ne. And that means in English, the moon is beautiful tonight, isn't it? Okay, so those two things I put together in the book because they both, there's something, the moon is the most powerful thing that you can really imagine in certain ways. I did not put this in the book, but I'll share with you, Grandfather Leon Secatero used to tell me that we could send our thoughts through the moon. And why did he say that? He said that because the moon is a reflector of light, and light is consciousness. So in a way, the moon is actually holding the consciousness of Earth, reflecting it back to it, So that's why he said you could send thoughts through the moon. It's the ultimate smoke signal. I'm sure if you've heard of smoke signals aren't, it's not that the smoke makes any shape and any letters. The smoke signal is just to get people's attention. But you don't even need that with the moon. If you can actually send your thoughts through the moon and they will reflect back. That's why I do say in the book that the moon will hear you. If you pray to the moon will hear you. Because I think the moon is very magical. And the moon is almost always considered feminine, but not always. The sun is almost always considered masculine, but also not always. In fact, for the Japanese, Amaterasu is the sun goddess. So you can't be certain about any of these things, but the moon is very powerful force on Earth, and I think it's something. I'm blessed because I live in New Mexico, and I think where you guys, are you all living near Monterey? I think you can also see. Is everybody kind of? No, so you're all over the place, right?
Here
But-
are blessed because we can go, watch the tides. And
Yeah,
that's the influence of the moon.
that's right. That's right. And you can also see the moon, I bet, in the daytime, which I can easily see in New Mexico all the time. And I remember where I grew up in New York, I never even thought about seeing the moon in the daytime. Forget it. I might not even be able to, if you're in New York City, you might not be able to see the moon at all. It's behind a building someplace, but it's always there. You can always feel it. You can always feel it. By the way, on my own website, the phases of the moon change. If you go to my website, originalthinking.us, if you want to know what phase of the moon it is, you can go to my website. Or you could look out the window if you can see the moon, but if you can't. But anyway, I really enjoyed this group, and thank you. But any more thoughts? I can stay a little longer. I mean, it's.
I have a
For me-
question.
Sure, yeah.
It's a really simple question. The poem you read, was that a Coleman Barks translation?
The Rumi.
I don't think so. I'm not sure. It could be. It could be, but I could actually. It might have been from. There's a fellow Thomas Raincrow that I know that's translated. He's translated Kabir. He's translated Hafiz, and I think he's translated Rumi too. Let me see. It is. Yes, it is Coleman Barks. Very good. Very astute. Yes, it is. That's where it came from. Is that something that is an unusual translation?
No, it sounds like Coleman.
Okay. Okay. I think he just died, didn't he? Just like yesterday?
Right.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
I think yesterday.
Is that correct? I think he just died yesterday.
I
So
think
I'm
so.
really good. Well, I will, because you evoked him, I will sing a going on chant for Coleman Barks, although I didn't really know him, but but maybe you could too. Did you?
His son went to Haverford.
Oh,
So
wow.
Ashok might know him.
Oh, oh, yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. No, that's powerful that you can recognize a translator. Translation, my wife is a translator and interpreter, so it's really an art form.
Yeah, it's
And
because he never tries to rhyme anything. He uses complete American free verse, and what he says always just goes in.
it goes in. What do you mean
It
goes
goes
in?
in, like you read it and it goes in. You don't have to try.
Mm. It really is an immensely powerful poem.
It's
It does speak to me a lot. It's that. Yeah, there is in original love. I also have poem from Kabir. Uh, there's those mystics. I guess Kabir is not just he's claimed partly by Sufis, partly by Vedic, right? He's kind of both. But those mystics and their poetry, that's one of the best ways to at least come close to evoking the feeling of love, and that's a beautiful thing to do.
and
Yeah,
that Mirabai that you mentioned before, is
yeah.
she the one that wrote all that Krishna poetry?
No,
No, that's a
I don't
different
think so.
Mirabai.
No,
There's
Mirabai Star is Mirabai Star actually is a person I know, and she lives in
okay, good.
Taos, New Mexico.
The one I'm thinking about lived quite a long time ago, and she
Uh,
was um, definitely a mystical love poet. Anyway, never mind.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't think Mirabai is her given name. She took on the name.
Ah.
So quite possibly she took on the name because of the person you're mentioning. I never asked her that, but I mean, it could be. She was born in Taos, New Mexico, so anything is possible, but not. Anybody
Yeah,
else?
I think
Oh,
she's referring to Mirabai, the saint from India.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and
Yes.
she wrote, yeah, you're right. She wrote a lot of poetry on Lord Krishna.
yeah,
And yeah, so there are lots of love poems
yeah,
steeped in spirituality and bhakti, the bhakti moment.
Mm, Bhakti yoga. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you, Janita. That is you, and your Hollywood Square is lighting up.
Great. Are
Yeah. Well,
do you want to do that chant or to end things?
a chant. A chant. What chant did I mention?
We're gonna
Oh,
chant Coleman.
uh, what's that?
You were gonna chant for Coleman Barks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could do that. I need to pull up something. Hold on a second. So I don't have it memorized, but I almost have it memorized, but not quite. Let's see. Going on, chant.
Can I add something really quick?
Absolutely.
The concept of the virgin goddess,
Yes.
before it was virgin, it was Parthenos, which was sovereign and unowned by a man. So
Yes.
this concept that it has anything to do with sexuality or morality is like false. And it's just about the feminine being sovereign in themselves. But I think that term gets misused. So I'm just putting it out there so that it's in the world. This is in a book about Saffron Rossi wrote a book called The Kore Goddess that talks about it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, my understanding was that it was and this I'm getting from Anne Baring and others that that the thing that about okay, let me come back to Zoom. I'm gonna the the goddess was very comfortable in all the realms. That's something very appealing to me. The goddess was comfortable in the heavens, the goddess was comfortable on the earth, and the goddess was comfortable in the dark mysteries of the underworld, which is natural to the feminine experience. According to what I've read, they are saying that the original meaning of the word virgin meant that they could self-fertilize themselves, or the goddess could. But the thing that troubles me about I'm sorry, go ahead. What?
Mother Earth, there are creatures in Mother Earth that can do that. So
Absolutely, and they're a creature.
Forms of life were able to do that.
They're still here that can do it. So
Yeah,
so snails can do that. So there's trees that have male branches and then female branches, different branches. But they're both masculine and feminine parts on the same body. Yeah, and there's and that's why one of the stories I tell in there is the separation of the sexes. It's the idea that the story that Plato told in the Symposium, that originally all humans were double-sex beings within a single body. It's one of my favorite stories, and it's a compelling story because whether it's true or not doesn't matter, because it's still compelling. And as Lisa just said, there's examples in nature of the ability to self-fertilize. So whatever. Yeah, I wasn't able to pull that up right away. Hold on a second. Let me try the going on chant again. Okay. I wonder why that's not coming up. Okay, let's see.
I've been reading Merlin Sheldrake recently, learning all sorts of things about fungi and early forms of life.
Well, that's what I aspire to do. Going on chanting. I always aspire to be a fungi.
That's
Sorry.
a Leroy joke.
Yeah, I know. Well, I like to hang out with Leroy, Moonhawk, all the people that make those kinds of jokes. I can't find the going on chant, but I could just, I don't know why I can't find it, because I always find it. And so why is it? Oh, wait, let me try one more thing. I'm going to go through my sent file, because I've sent it to people. So going on chant. Okay, I found it. All right, so you wanted to hear the chant? This is for Coleman Barks. Okay, and you're supposed to chant this facing east, which I am facing actually, and sing it 4 times. And you're supposed to, this is believed that you should sing it for the 4 days after a soul has left. And then you can begin to feel it in yourself. And you can sing it from a distance. It doesn't matter. You're speaking to a soul which can hear it from any place. So it goes like this. Hey ya no, hey ya no, hey ya way nay. Hey ya no yo yo, hey ya no, hey ya way nay yo way. Hey ya no yo yo, hey ya no, hey ya way nay. Hey ya no yo yo, hey ya no, hey ya way nay. Hey ya no, hey ya no, hey ya way nay. Hey ya no yo 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 yo, hey ya no hey ya way way no way, hey ya no waka gande, hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay, hey ya no hey ya no hey ya way nay, hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no hey ya no hey ya way nay, hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay yo way, hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay, hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay, hey ya no hey ya no hey ya way nay, hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay no way, hey ya no waka dendige, hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay, hey ya no hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way way no way. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way way no way. Hey ya no waka then gay. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey awa nay. Hey ya no hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay no way. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay no way. Hey ya no waka then gay. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no hey ya no hey ya way nay. Hey ya no yo yo hey ya no yo hey ya way nay. Thank you, Coleman Barks, for all the beauty you brought to this planet, and we ask you for, we pray that you have a beautiful transition and that your spirit becomes merged with the clouds, and that when it rains that we get to feel some of your spirit, some of your soul coming back down to earth. And so that we ask that some of the beauty that you brought to the earth takes up residence in our own hearts, and that we appreciate even more fully who you were while you were in the flesh, that you and your spirit continue to live within us, that the best and most enlightened thoughts that you ever had come into our bodies, reside in our hearts, in our minds, in our souls. Aho mitakiyas.
Oh, you just invoked the souls of the Ohlone Indians who joined us just now. When you
Oh, really?
yes,
Oh, okay.
I mean
Well,
it just
good.
on another level.
Wow. Well, thank you, everyone, and
Thank you,
Thank
Glenn.
you,
Thank you for your contribution to the world. Contributions, plural,
Oh.
and all that you have done to bring love into this world.